think you got it all
I was going to ask, are they
done.
hearing us? Thank you, sir.
Look at us go.
Oh, okay. Right, we're up. Right, okay. So we went to bed at sidereal time. Okay, so you got two clocks running side by side. Yeah.
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 You can use whichever one you want, but we use the solar one because we live in a 24-hour day. Okay. Right. The next two columns. Okay. See that little symbol at the top, the circle with the dot in the middle? It's a standard astronomical symbol for the sun.
Okay.
You got one there and one there. All right. And it shows two things. All right. It shows the sun's longitude and it shows its declination. All right. Now, what they use the word declination the way we use latitude. All right. It's simply, if you imagine drawing latitude lines in the sky, they'd just be concentric circles around the North Pole. All right. Now, we did this with the planisphere, and the planisphere actually shows it a lot better. You only need this sort of detail if you're going into all the astrological stuff. All right. So it shows the position of the sun, longitude, declination of latitude. All right. And then the next column. So what you can do is you can work out where the sun is against a sidereal calendar or against a solar calendar. Okay. Right. Next column. These next four columns.
Hold on, before you get to the next four columns, can I just say when you say the sidereal time versus the 24-hour, so in the first two columns, the week days of the week and the month, the number of the months, that would be 00.00 time all the way down. Is that right? And then the next column would be the variation of that. Gotcha.
Well, actually, it wouldn't actually. It'd be 12 o'clock.
Okay.
They work on midday.
Gotcha. Yep.
All right, but it's dead right. Okay, right. The next four columns are the moon. All right, and this was the thing. I thought, why have they got so much more information for the moon? But the thing to remember is the astrologers use the sun, the moon, and the wandering stars. All right, so they need to know where all of them are, and they need to know it by the minute. Now, what the astrologers do is they can work out if they get where it is on one day and where it is on the next day, they can work out where it is by the minute through that day. All right, but what it does is it gives it to us. It gives it to us by solar day, and they spin it back from there.
Got you.
Okay. Now, what you'll notice down this column is these little symbols. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're the zodiac signs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what it's doing is over the space of the month, the moon is traveling through the zodiac. That's Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and it comes back it takes less than a month for it to come back to Cancer.
Right, yeah, that's really interesting. Are you into this astrology stuff?
No.
You reeled those signs off really quickly. I'm impressed. You've probably got them written down. Yeah.
No, it's one of those things that once you've read it often enough, they're not hard. I mean, you do what most people do. They look for their own sign. All right, and they normally start from there. Okay, but if you look at them, they're not hard to work out what they are. I mean, that looks like a bowl. Okay, and that one looks like water. The only one water bloke with a bucket, isn't it? It's Aquarius. All right, so but it shows how far the moon has gone through each sign. All right, now what you'll notice is that none of these go above 30. All right, You look all the way down. None of them are higher than 30.
And is that 30 degrees north?
No, it's not. It's 30 degrees around the ecliptic. Right. Remember, the sky is circular.
Mm-hmm.
The sky that we're using is circular. All right. 360 degrees. There's 12 houses. That's what they call the signs. There's 12 houses. Mm-hmm. Right. So each house is 30 degrees wide.
Mm-hmm.
So all it's showing you is how far through each house it's gone. You see, you only get a couple of days before it's moved on.
Right. So you're never going to see 31.
No.
Gotcha.
Because by then it's in the next sign.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. And there are signs on the sun one as well, but they're few and far between. Yeah,
because the sun doesn't travel around the ecliptic in a month. It takes a year to travel around the ecliptic.
Wow.
So
this is black and white.
The lucky thing here is in March it goes from
something to something.
Pisces to Aries.
Oh, that's what Pisces is. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is in black and white, isn't it? It's telling you.
This is the thing. Again, I came across the word ephemeris when I was I think I was reading. It was either Albert Smith or one of the old books. And I keep saying, if you want to know what this is, get an ephemeris.
I came across the word and I just thought effeminate, and I didn't know what it was. But it's an actual publication, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do they publish? I mean, this is 2015, so they're still going today, aren't they? And do you know how far back they go?
They go back to the east. Right. There's a number of organisations publishing ephemeris. The one that the kind of the go-to one for the Northern Hemisphere is Raphael's. All right. Biblical. And they've been going since the 1790s. Okay. In the Southern Hemisphere, the one they generally go for is Lahiri, which is it's made in India because they're kind of big on it over there.
Cool.
And they're actually giving you the same information, but they tend to look at stars nearer their neck of the woods than on this side. But yeah, this thing's published. They publish one every year.
It's blowing my mind here. I mean, this is just black and white, telling you how it is, as long as you can understand it. Is there some sort of document that goes with this to tell you how? I mean, you must have read it, unless you worked it out.
No. Funny enough, no, there isn't.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
It's very. It's not. It's not as complicated as it looks. All right, and people take a look at it and they see all the numbers and their brains turn to jelly and droop out their ears. Mm-hmm. It's not. If you actually sit down and just look at what it's telling you, once you realise that the houses are 30 degrees wide, you can see why these numbers don't go above 30.
Yeah.
And you also realise it's going through the houses.
Say again, Adam.
Well, I know I'm jumping the gun, but it's probably to get it back on track. We've gone longitude and declination, and now I see the moon's got longitude, latitude, and declination. So can you?
Node.
I'm following it so far, and it's making perfect sense. And I think if anybody they don't need a book to explain it. Just replay tonight's show. You get a great explanation of.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm going to shut up now until you've finished explaining what each of these rows are, because I think this is the definitive explanation as to what the hell you're looking at.
Right, this is kind of where the fun starts, okay? Just stay with me for a minute, okay? Longitude for the moon is the same as longitude for the sun. All right?
Yep.
Declination and latitude. Now, for the sun, declination and latitude were virtually synonymous. All right, and this is where I think the problem comes in. All right, jump a column to declination. Okay, declination is latitude in the sky. All right, but it creates another problem, because for the heliocentric globe to work, all right, they've actually got 3 dimensions that the astrologers use. Okay, they use longitude and latitude, or longitude and declination, okay, to say where on the sky the moon is. But the other thing is the sun, the ecliptic for the moon and the ecliptic for the sun are slightly offset from each other, an angle about 5 degrees. Okay, so if you can imagine 2 rings, okay, that overlap each other and they cross in the middle.
Got it.
You got the picture?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's why they need the latitude column. Okay? Because the latitude shows how many degrees above or below the ecliptic plane it is. All right. Now they can't do this with the globe, because sooner or later they've got an extra dimension in there. All right. Because if the moon is going around the globe, then longitude and declination should give you the information that you need. It'll tell you where the moon is. But they've got this third, almost intelligent function that's going on with the moon. The moon goes up and down. All right. Mm-hmm. So what you've got is the sun takes a year to go around the ecliptic. The moon takes a month to go around the ecliptic. Okay, so the moon is traveling a lot faster than the sun is. The moon goes up, but the sun goes about 1 degree per day. The moon goes about 13 degrees per day around the ecliptic. Okay.
Wow, and we knew this, but this is in black and white, like I keep saying.
The thing is, it all just gets lost, because one of the things when I did episode 7, I said, look, the moon's moving from Cancer to Capricorn and back to Cancer. Okay, and people were saying, oh, well, it's 5 degrees above the ecliptic plane. What does that do? It doesn't do anything unless you explain why it's doing it.
Yeah.
All right, and the tropics simply don't explain it. Okay, the ecliptic explains it perfectly, why the moon moves from one to the other. All right, because the ecliptic is off-center compared to the rest of the sky.
I'd be right in thinking, though, sorry to butt in, but I'd be right in thinking that anyone who had enough knowledge could plug all these numbers into AutoCAD or something, and they probably have, or Mike Helmick or something has probably done this, and could portray it in graphical form.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was kind of hoping there's a guy popped up not so long back called Walter Bislin. All right. And when episode 13 went up, he left a message and he said, I'm building a model of this. So I said, great, let's talk, because I'll give you all the information, and if you can put it together in a kind of 3D, this is what it looks like for people, it might make a lot of sense. But unfortunately, Walter Bislin thinks he lives on a little ball. And he thinks the ephemeris is, well, actually, he thinks my ephemeris is wrong. I said, but it's not my ephemeris. All right? It's made by Raphael's that have been making these things for decades. And it's a shame, because it would have been kind of good seeing the two things come together. All right?
It's sad that he doesn't realise that whether whoever made it, it's still data and it's a model in its own potential, and didn't make it himself anyway. The fact that he thinks it's wrong, it shouldn't have stopped him from plugging in the data and just going, just having a look at it.
Excuse me.
While you're choking, can I just get a bit? So is the latitude the variance from the declination? Is that what it's saying there? Or is it
right? Right. What you've got is you've got 2 planes, 2 circular planes, okay, that intersect with each other.
Yeah.
All right. The latitude shows not just how far round it's gone, which is longitude, and declination, which is how far out it's gone. All right. It's also how far above or below the plane is. So now, if you come back to the latitude column, you'll notice it doesn't go more than 5 degrees.
That was going to show off there and make that comment. That's
doesn't go more than just at 5 degrees and 4 minutes above or below. Okay, so all these people are saying, oh, well, the sun's ecliptic plane is different from the moon's ecliptic. That's why the moon moves from the tropic Cancer to the tropic Capricorn. It's just nonsense. No, it doesn't explain that at all. Unfortunately, I didn't bring. If you go back and have a look at episode 13, at the end of it, it shows how the two planes are at an angle to each other. It's probably the easiest, but it was the easiest way I could think of doing it, to just show people. All right. Now, what you'll also notice, if you go back to the longitude for the moon, for a moment, okay, if you follow the moon around over the space of the year, its latitude, notice its declination doesn't go any higher than 18 degrees. All right. So it doesn't come any closer to any further out from the center than about 18 degrees either side of the equator. All right. And this is where I think there may be a cop-out in here. What I wonder is whether they've simply bolted on the latitude. All right. So things like timeanddate.com, which is where I first realized that the moon moved from between the two tropics over the space of a month. All right. I wonder whether they've just added the two figures together. All right, because the ecliptic for the moon doesn't go quite as far as the sun does most of the time.
I think you're right. The shenanigans here, the fact that you've got longitude, latitude, declination, and node under the moon, and just longitude and declination on the sun. There's something being hidden here. I get some sort of gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. All right. So but like I said, that's nothing more than my supposition. All right. This says where the moon is laterally and longitudinally, which is what I used when I did episode 13. Okay. What's interesting, and this seems to just be an astrological thing, okay, is they also track where the node is. All right. And the node is simply the point where those two paths cross. Okay? Yeah. So if you imagine two rings crossing over each other, all right, and the whole thing, the pair of rings are constantly rotating. Now, one of them, it doesn't make any difference because it's circular, but the other one's got a tilt on it, which is the moon. All right, and the astrologers, where the node is month by month, the astrologers pay some attention to it, which is why you've got the node column. Okay, now you'll notice that it doesn't move more than one house in the space of a month. It's gone from 11 degrees in Libra to 10 degrees. It's moved 1 degree.
But I notice, interestingly, that there's only 2 in a year, and that would make perfect sense if, like you said, you got your 2 hula hoops, and the only time they're going to cross is twice a year.
Well, it's not. They cross every month because the moon goes around once a month.
But that's not what we're seeing here, though, is it? I mean, that's what we should be seeing here. Is that right? These circles are imaginary.
Okay, it's simply all they've done is they know what they know where the ecliptic path is for the moon, and they know where the ecliptic path is for the sun. All right, so all the astrologers do is they project, they take the nearest one to the date that they're looking at, and they say, well, on such and such a date, this is where the node was.
So is this a projection rather than an observation?
Well, what's interesting is I had a conversation with Cami Nodal.
Yes. Yes.
I've done quite a bit of work with Cami. Okay, because Cami was looking at the moon and trying to figure other things out about it. Okay, and what it seems is the eclipses occur when the moon and the sun is at the node. All right, which is why the eclipses are not as regular, as not as frequent as we think they should be, based on the heliocentric globe. All right, and
lunar eclipses you're talking about.
Lunar eclipses and solar eclipses. All right, it's simply that crossover point. There's something happens at the crossover point. Now, do you remember the eclipse, the solar eclipse in last year? All right. Do you remember a number of people were saying, "I can't see the moon as it comes to eclipse the sun"?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some people started asking whether the moon goes behind the sun. All right. Now, the thing is, it's a lot to take in, because it kind of throws everything up in the air, because it says, well, in which case, is the light coming from behind, or is whatever's making the light coming from behind? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
But at this point, what you said before the break, Zach, has to come into account, surely. But you've still got two columns to go.
No, I haven't. Okay. Those two columns. All they've done here is they've given the exact same information, but they've given it on a 24-hour day.
Okay, I've got you.
Right. It's nothing more than a crib column, so you can actually ignore the last two columns.
Gotcha.
Right.
What was it you were saying then, Zach?
I had just mentioned that the ephemeris just doesn't cover these bodies, but it also covers a few other bodies. And if you could elaborate a little bit more on that, AJ.
Lilith. Should talk about Lilith.
Yeah. As well as a few other asteroids as well.
The Black Moon, Black Star, whatever.
The funny thing was they didn't start including it in the regular ephemeris until 2016. And they put it on the cover, and they said it gives position of all these wandering stars. I'll come back to it in a second. And the Black Moon, Lilith. And I thought, what's this Black Moon thing? I remember I was saying when the Flat Earth Society kind of folded in on itself, I ended up chatting at one point to a bloke over there, and he said there are dark bodies in the sky. And I thought, oh, here we go. Okay, there's dark bodies in the sky, but we can't see them. So what can we do about it? And then 2016 Ephemeris came out, and it says it there on the front cover. It shows the positions of the asteroids and the Black Moon, Lilith. And I thought, what's this bloody Lilith thing? So I looked into it, and it shows where there's this thing called Lilith that also goes around the ecliptic. And whatever it is, the astrologers know where it is because they track it every month. Okay, so it's one of those things. There's something in the sky that we can't see, and they know where it is. All right. And when we had the lunar eclipse last year, and somebody asked me, it was one of those things. I was just having a conversation at the time, and they said, "Where's Lilith?" And Lilith was in the same house as the moon. So Lilith seemed like a good explanation for why we had the lunar eclipse. It was this dark body passing apparently in front of the moon. Okay. So what I then did is looked up the next one. And Lilith was nowhere near it. But what was near it was one of the asteroids called Ceres. All right, Ceres.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, asteroid. It's on the front cover of the Ephemeris. It says it gives the sun, the moon, the wandering stars, or the planets. And there's 4 asteroids that they've got names for. Okay, one of them is Sirius. I can't remember what the other three are off the top of my head, and the Black Moon Lilith. So I thought, okay, there's more things up there that we generally don't think anything of it. And you say asteroid to most people, and they think that little pebble fly through the universe. Okay, that's most people's idea of what an asteroid is. It's a little body that's flying around, and we know where it is. Okay, if you go and look up Ceres, anybody can do this. Go and look it up on the internet. Ceres is big enough for them to call it they call it a dwarf planet. All right. Now, the asteroid belt is supposedly between Mars and Jupiter. Okay, so what you've got is to kind of come back to your geocentric solar system. You've got the planets flying around in circles up in the sky. There's this band of asteroids that we never see, and they're not as small as they would have us believe. Like I say, the Ceres is called a dwarf planet. And this was what I noticed. The last lunar eclipse, it was there was one in February somewhere, I think. And Ceres was in the same house as the moon. So I thought, I wonder if some of the asteroids are bigger than we think they are. And they're not necessarily going behind. They're not necessarily going in front of the moon. They're actually going behind it. Right. And if you think of people who've said they think the moon is see-through or it's translucent, then whatever's making the moon light up could conceivably get fed from behind.
Yeah, bloody interesting that is.
There you go. Go and look up Go and look up asteroids.
I'm looking up Lilith at the moment for some reason.
Well, Lilith was a funny one. It was kind of because I actually wasn't ready to make this when I made it. But it got out, and it's like all things. If it gets out the wrong way. If you go and shag a search on YouTube for Lilith, all right, what you'll actually find is there's all these disembodied spirits that are being channeled by people down here. All right, and this Lilith, Lilith is, if you read the Gnostic books, Lilith is supposed to be in Adam's first wife, and she wouldn't come across with the goods. She wouldn't come across with the good. She wouldn't come across with the goods, so he kicked her out and married Eve instead. But it's all very Gnostic stuff. All right. And I thought, if just the name Lilith gets out, people are going to go online, they're going to search Lilith, and they're going to find all these people channeling disembodied spirits, it's not a good thing.
It is for them.
Especially if you know what you're doing. Well, this Lilith she sounds like a real nasty cow. She's telling people she's going to come and destroy the world, and she's going to make all the men slaves, and this, that, and the other, and she's out for a pound of flesh. So I thought, all right, we'll put it out where it is. We'll tell people what we know so far, and just hope they don't go searching on the internet on YouTube for Lilith and believe everything it says. Because some flat earther told her that Lilith is a very real phenomenon, whatever it is.
That is fascinating. Yeah, in chat, Trouble About is gobsmacked, and I quote, that this dark moon is named Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely fascinating. I was blown away by the idea that the eclipse was caused by something going behind the sun, which would explain why we don't see it heading up or leaving the sun. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It kind of goes back to what they were talking about when they made the principle. Okay, is that the whole model will work for a flat Earth. It will work for a geocentric or a heliocentric model. All right, flat Earth is exactly the same thing. Okay, you can work both models. All right, both models are perfectly workable. You can use them. All you do is you're flipping a few orbits round so that it's one thing orbiting something else. All right, and once you start to replace things, put the Earth back at the middle with the planets going round the ecliptic and the asteroids following an imaginary circle somewhere between Mars and Jupiter, the whole thing works just as well.
This reminds me, for some reason, of Orwell's 1984, when he says, Winston, do you not think we're capable of devising two physics models, and when it suits us, it's in one sense it suits us to have this Earth, and in another sense it suits us to have this Earth, and but one of them's got to be real.
Didn't he say the stars are just little bits of fire in the sky?
He said an awful lot, like dinosaurs don't exist, doesn't it? I mean, there was, it was a truth bomb page that has only really begun to be analysed since this sort of flat Earth realisation has come to light. But it was a very telling part of 1984. Love you to read it, Josh.
That part of the conversation did not make it into the movie either, if you notice that.
Interesting.
That part was only in the book.
Did it not?
I'm almost positive.
It's redacted.
Interesting.
It's reduced, isn't it? There's the mention of the astronomy, and there's a slight mention of they can make day and night move, but I think that whole informative section, as you call it, is redacted into the movie. Yeah. With John Hurt, you mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now.
It makes you wonder how old this... Go.
And it comes to Lilith, and you mentioned it's news to me. I'd heard of Lilith from Gnostic teachings and stuff, and are all there. And this role here, now I've always kind of assumed we had Rahu, Ketu, and things like that. I don't know if you could just fill me in or explain to me the differential here, because. Or is
Rahu and Ketu just seem to be Oriental names for the same phenomena.
I was going to ask that very question next.
Lilith and the kind of the biblical link to things seems to be a reasonably Western take on what's going on in the sky. Because the thing to remember is, you can kind of if you kind of dig back through the Bible and things like that, the astrologers were right there at the beginning. Okay, so this is not new science. All right, they were worshiping the stars. They were worshiping anything. But it was so the knowledge of the astrologers, if for no other reason than its detail, is worth taking note of, because they hang so much on it. And a lot of it kind of developed from China, the Orient, and what was the what do they call it? Lower Asia, the bottom bit of Asia, which is India and kind of all those almost Middle Eastern. And how it's got to us. So don't be put off too much by contamination amongst the names. As I said to you, when I first had conversations about dark bodies in the sky, I thought, right, here we go, fairy stories. And it was only when I got hold of the ephemeris that I realised that there's something up there, and people who know what they're looking at know where it is. Because when you think about, what eclipses, it's understandable how they arrived at, Rahu or Ketu or whatever name they want to use, comes along, gobbles up the sun and the moon. Yeah, in olden times, it's perfectly understandable. They would have thought it was something up there eating the sun or the moon. And I suspect that as we kind of read more into these things and find out more of what's going on, we'll start to get that crossover.
I mean, am I right in thinking that modern astronomy has also admitted that there are dark bodies up there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I say modern astronomy, within the last 100 years, but it's not something that's denied. It's just something that's overlooked, as with most other things that step outside our paradigm.
Well, do you know what was really funny was when episode 13 went up, okay, a number of people came to me and said, "It's just a new moon. Are you stupid or something?" No, it's not. Go and read the ephemeris. It's not in the same place. Okay, and it's almost like people have found a palatable explanation for something, and they're happy to leave it at that.
Yeah,
they understand.
It's confirmation bias.
Yeah. And if that's what people want to stop at, okay, fine. Good luck to them.
More power to them. Fine. Stay out my way, though.
I think this goes to the core of flat Earth. All right, there's a bunch of people can look at the world around them and realize that the world is flat. The lights in the sky go round us. We know what they do. We know where they're going to be. They're so regular that we can even predict when they're going to be there. All right, and it works for a geocentric. It works for a geocentric flat stationary Earth, and it works for a globular heliocentric world. And the decision is yours to make. And
however, one comes with facts, though, doesn't it? One comes with facts and demonstrable sort of evidence that you can test for yourself, and the other one is just pure nonsense and theory.
Yeah.
Based on 93 million miles.
Yeah.
Like the what was it? That guy, Roma, whatever. Yeah, he was the one that was watching eclipses of Jupiter's moons, and he came to the conclusion that from 6 months apart, the Earth, it would see the eclipse 16 and a half minutes to be precise, later than you would 6 months prior. And his conclusion therefore was that the light took that long to get to the Earth, and therefore from that was extrapolated that it would take 8.25 minutes for the sun's light to get to Earth, and from that was extrapolated that this lines up with 93 million miles, and from that was extrapolated the mass of the Earth, the mass of the sun, the size of the sun, the orbit of everything you ever possibly see, and it was all based on a pure assumption.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. And the problem is, it's those assumptions have been accepted largely as fact, and people haven't looked any further. But I did. One of the early episodes I did was called "The N Word." All right, and I titled it that just as a bit of clickbait. I thought people just want to know what the N word is.
Your titles are awesome, by the way, because it doesn't exactly tell you what's going on, but it like you say, it's clickbait, and that's great.
Well, the funnier one was Language Timothy, but I'll do that one in a second. All right. The point about the N word, okay, was that I was hearing a lot of debates, a lot of conversations where people were having, and as soon as somebody started talking about numbers, people were saying, "Oh, I've got number blindness, so I can't do it," and kind of throw their arms up in the air and their brains are turned to jelly. And you don't need complicated numbers to understand flat Earth. All right.
No, quite the opposite, isn't it?
The numbers are quite straightforward. All right, and you know the one I'm going to go to is the curvature calculation. People are saying, well, at 4,000 miles, this calculation wouldn't work. Well, when you can do a sight test over 4,000 miles, come back and tell me the calculation doesn't work. Okay, because the sightings that have generally been done to prove flat Earth are done over 5 or 6 miles. All right, and that calculation is more than adequate. Okay, it was simply to make that statement and keep it very, very simple to say to people, look, numbers is not a big thing. Okay, and all these people were saying, oh well, I'm number blind. All right, I've been number blind since I was a kid. You've been number blind because a teacher told you were number blind. All right, can you go to the shops and buy something and pay for it and count your change? Yes. Well, in which case you're not number blind.
Yeah, and this is the point, is that it comes down to scaling. You know, like this is why I mentioned Phuket Word, is that he can put a lighter on the other side of a play, on the other side of a children's playing area that's absolutely flat, and he can make the bottom disappear because it's just scaling. And the 8 inches per mile squared works over a distance of at least 300 to 400 miles, if not further. And like you say, who can see further than that? Stop dicking about. Stop splitting hairs over it. If you can see it a mile away and it's 1 inch tall, then something's wrong.
Go and stand on a road that you know to be flat. See how far you get down the road before things start to disappear. Okay, now you know that road is flat. And you can see stuff disappearing from the bottom upwards. There's clearly an optical phenomena going on there. So why is the flat Earth such a problem?
And the neatest part is on the side of the road, you'll see all the green trees and the shrubbery, and they won't be mirrored because you're seeing them at a different angle, and they aren't flat.
There's a funny thing that our eyesight does, and they've tested this every which way you can think of. Our brains fill in certain bits of our sight that we don't see, and it's done. Apparently, it's done to avoid us getting kind of overloaded with visual input.
But AJ, they don't just fill in. I mean, what we're told is that our eyes see everything upside down. I mean, it's not just filling in, it's absolutely inverting it and creating something that we're not actually meant to be seeing.
Well, that's a weird one, isn't it?
Isn't it?
But it's I think it's how our brains process information and what it does to make it easier. Because people say, well, if the world was flat, I'd be able to see China from New York. Well, if you were going to stand in New York, all right, and look all the way across to see China, how much information do you think you're going to take in? All right, and what a sensory overload you're going to get trying to separate. You think about how we deal with depth of field and all that sort of stuff. How much information you're going to get coming in before eventually your brain says, can't cope with this, I can't process all of this. All right, you know the way you watch television, all right, and no, television's a bad example. You know the way you can cast your eye around the room, or you can cast your eye around a scene, and people say, well, I can see the whole room in one go. No, you can't. You actually focus on individual things, and your focus changes as you focus on each thing. All right, and our brains fill the rest in, kind of as information comes in.
Yeah, if you focus on something in front of you and try to read something to the side without looking at it, it's nearly impossible. There is, I believe it's 3 different sized circles that are on our retina. There is one that it's a nice size one, then it gets a little bit smaller, and then it gets to a pinhole. And that's on the back of our eye to where we can see. So that's where our real focus is at. And then as it gets out further, it gets layered to where it gets harder and harder to see as it gets near the edges.
And we've got a blind spot in your eye as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of what's going on there. We take so much information in through our visual cortex. Do you remember I was saying earlier about when I was a kid? I remember my teacher telling me that the Earth was a ball. All right, and I got all the usual flannel about and it's too big, you can't see the curve. And what did I do straight away? I went out into the schoolyard, all right, and I stood on the edge of the playing field. Now I know it's flat, all right, and I stood there looking at the far edge of the playing field, and I could see a curve, all right. And that was after my teacher just said it's too big for you to see the curve. So I knew my eyes were doing something to it, and it's the way it goes back to. Do you remember Gavin doing he did a discussion? I think you were in on it, Zach. The Great Switcheroo.
Yeah, the Great Switcheroo.
And he was talking about how our eyeball is a curved surface. So there's something that happens when light goes into our eyes that creates that perceived curve. Of course, as soon as you go to look at the curve, it's straight. Well, it will be because you've refocused. All right. So it's this thing when people saying, well, I look out of the airplane. I thought I'd looked out of an airplane and see the curve of the Earth as well. No, if I'm really honest about it, I didn't. It was just the periphery of my vision.
But you're not wrong in sort of stating the obvious that the eyeball is a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And the Great Switcheroo. Go for it, Zach. You were on the call.
I was just going to say, if you take a squared object, a cube, and you hold it very, very close to your face and focus on the center point and kind of look at your peripherals, that cube will start to curve when you move it around in different ways. You can make the edges of that thing start to move. It's only until you get it so far away does it take on a planar view. It's all because of the shape of your eye. Once it gets so close, it goes into it on Great Switcheroo really well.
I've watched that episode a few times because there's so much information there.
Yeah, me.
Because it's something that people don't think about. People kind of accept it. They take the bits they want that suit their bias and don't look at it any closer. So to completely derail that for a minute, the other one I did as clickbait was I did an episode called Language Timothy. All right. And the funny thing is, hardly anybody watched it.
That's a play, though, isn't it? That's a play on a comedy, isn't it? Or a catchphrase.
Oh gosh, yeah, language. Do you know what the funny thing is? You can say Language Timothy to a lot of people, and they know what you mean.
Some mothers do have them. Is that right?
Sorry.
Oh,
Language Timothy.
Oh yeah, God, so it was.
I muttered it. I muttered it going past somebody in the street one day, and he apologised to me.
Sorry, mother.
It was bad language, and it was kind of one of those programmed response things. But anyway, I did a video called Language Timothy, and it was nothing to do with bad language. Okay. It was to do with we were getting mixed up with a lot of terminology was being thrown around, and people were throwing cognitive dissonance around and confirmation bias, and it's this and it's that and it's the other, and we seemed to be missing what these things actually meant. Cognitive dissonance became a throwaway for us. Anytime somebody disagreed with what somebody else said, that's just your cognitive dissonance. No, I don't understand what you're saying. So I did an episode called Language Timothy to just say to people, stop and think about the words that people are using and think about what those words mean. All right, you've got things like NASA. Okay, if it is rooted supposedly in the Hebrew word for deception. But also look at the Vatican's observatory. Okay, and what do they call it? Lucifer. What exactly are they telling us?
I think it's pretty bloody obvious, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to stop by that one. I'm going to be in New Mexico, and that's where it's at. I'm going to go to that observatory. I want to see it.
It's on Mount Graham, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't believe that the Vatican found a way to name something of theirs Lucifer, and nobody finds that to be shocking.
Well,
wait till they get their own particle collider. I hear it's called Satan or something.
Look at transubstantiation.
Lilith, maybe.
Come on. If they can think that they're actually eating the flesh of Christ and actually drinking blood and never bat an eye, then come on.
Yep. True.
But it was let's say is people need to look at the language that's used. People need to look at the words that are used and just ask themselves, is that what the word means? Is that what I think it means? And if it isn't, I've got some homework to do.
Are you sort of familiar with the lawful legalese type of thing? Sounds like you might have had a brush with that.
A little bit.
In terms of, sort of Black's Law Dictionary, the understand meaning stand under, and person meaning corporation, and human.
I read law for 2 years at university.
Right.
And hated it.
Oh, really?
I got a taste for. I realised why I hated it, because it is so wrapped up in that.
Yes, it is absolutely.
Exactly what you mean when you say something, and what these words actually mean.
This is why. My conclusion after probably 7 years or whatever in the law movement was, keep your gob shut. Just don't say a word. Don't admit to anything. Don't be the name. Don't tell them your address. Certainly don't tell them your date of birth. They might go and look up your star chart or something and decide you're to be put away. But yeah, language is everything. Is my point.
And I don't think people look closely enough at the language that's used. I mean, how many flat Earth debates have you heard where somebody has made a statement about something and they've kind of argued about it ad nauseum, and an hour later, the first guy that spoke has said that wasn't what I meant.
Yeah,
it kind of think,
just goes in circles.
Maybe we need to kind of nail down some terms.
Well, this is where here on IRM we sort of came unstuck when we were trying to talk about metaphysics and metaphysical things, and it became quite clear quite early on that none of us could actually define it, and so it that is where you have to start, really. If you're going to talk about chalk and cheese, you need to define chalk and cheese. You can't sort of have one person thinking chalk is cheese and the other person thinking cheese is chalk. it just doesn't work.
Well, the thing is, we seem to contract a rather virulent dose of big word disease. All right, where people why use one syllable when 8 will make you sound cleverer. And we have these people using these big words, and from what they're saying, they haven't got a clue what they're talking about.
I think that's a catchphrase for IRM there. Why use one syllable when 8 is...
Yep. And the other one is...
Podcast for 1 hour when you can do 5.
Yes.
I hate all that sort of pontification. It's not necessary.
It's terrible alluding to stuff like that, isn't it?
Because you get to the end of it, you say, I haven't got a bloody clue what you just said. I don't have a clue what you have just said. It was gobbledygook.
The armory, isn't it, of the less informed? If you give a big word salad, it's often sufficient to scare off any retort to the point you were making.
Yep. You see, I taught for a living for for years. Okay, I taught on the railway, and making something sound complicated so that you sound clever is not a good recipe. All right, it makes you sound like a dickhead. If you want to explain something to somebody, you need to explain it in a way they can understand. Otherwise, it's pointless.
As you would to a child. That's how I try to do everything.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason
very young.
The only reason you'd use overcomplicated words is from what I can see, is because you don't understand it yourself particularly. So you're going to throw in a few complicated words that you're almost certain the recipient doesn't understand, and therefore they're not going to challenge you on it. I mean, it's a classic recipe.
And it begs the question: who's the fool? All right, you because you don't understand a subject, or me because I'm using words that I don't even understand. There's a great old. It's an old masterpiece. I don't know who it's by, and I stuck it at the end of Language Timothy, and the picture's called "Who's the Fool." And it's showing a court jester kind of lying on the floor, resting his chin on in his palms, looking up. I think it's supposed to be Galileo. Okay, but it might not be. It's clearly somebody who's supposed to know what he's talking about. And they call the painting "Who's the Fool?" All right, because you think the guy lying on the ground in the jester's outfit is the fool, and the guy standing up is the clever guy, and it's not. It's actually the other way around. All right, the guy standing up using big words is not as clever as you think he is.
If you can't explain it to a 12-year-old, then you can't teach it.
That's the point, John. There's explaining it, but I think in the situations that we're talking about, it's not about 99% of the time. It's not about explaining it to somebody else. It's about trying to make somebody not challenge your opinion based on intimidation.
Well, I think you've come quite close to the coalface on this with the amount of hours you put in on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel with Sleeping Warrior and all the others. Is that this is what it sort of it degenerates to on the globe scale, is that they're just throwing things in there that you may not know at the time, but if you had 10 minutes to look into it, you'd realise that the big words they're using are gibberish.
That's a great shout, mate. Nathan's put a video out tonight of the Rumpus, who I think a year ago was held in high esteem. But if you listen now, we're getting very wise at listening to the kind of word salad, and actually getting good at breaking it down to realise that it is just a load of big words that actually is, in most cases, contradicting itself from one part of the paragraph to the next. I think we're getting wiser as we learn more, and stuff like tonight stuff is great armory for understanding. And like I said, like what AJ's done, he's explained tonight. He's not, you know what I mean? Those bits you've took me through, those bits, and I really appreciate it. And that is the big difference between, I'd say, wanting to impose your opinion on somebody else with confusion, and the other way, which is to explain to someone. And if you have to explain like a child, which has happened to me tonight, to get some of the clarity in there, it's a benefit. And you do that I know Nathan does it in a slightly tongue-in-cheek way, and he's talking to them like a child. But in most cases, if you are civil with somebody, you are prepared to go down to the base to ensure understanding.
Yeah.
But having said that, I teach a lot of my medics to use a word salad, because if you're trying to get your way in a situation, there's nothing like a good bit of word salad in a medical environment that does prove you know what you're on about. Because in many situations, the medics is a similar example. People often won't speak out. If you do use a word salad and actually somebody's unsure of their position, then they often won't challenge a word salad for fear of looking foolish themselves. And that's often the other reason that people do it. So it is to intimidate and prevent people challenging their statement.
That's what I was going to say. It's more of a tactic, isn't it? Sorry, AJ, all yours.
No, it sounds like the lawyer in you coming out there. It's one of those things. If you're going to explain something to somebody, then explain it. It's what got us into this mess in the first place. We were taught things that were way over our heads when we were a lot younger. And there were little things in there that we thought, maybe that doesn't work, but the teacher said it, so it must be right, kind of thing. And to just say to people, look, if you don't understand something, ask. And you will find generally somebody who will explain something to you. If you really want to understand it. If you simply want to argue about it, fine, I'll go 5 rounds with anybody. All right, but in terms of people that actually want to understand something, no, there's an easy way and a hard way to do it, and big words generally doesn't do it.
That's it. I agree. I mean, if you're trying to explain something to your best mate, then you're going to use the simplest words possible. You're going to try and explain it to them in the simplest way so that they understand. If you're trying to win an argument, then you're going to throw in ridiculous concepts like relativity and all these other things, and the EMC squared, which is wrong anyway apparently, that is going to baffle the other side unless they've done some sort of research, and that's what you're hoping for. It's a tactic. It's a defensive reaction. It's not a here's how it actually works. Here is how I understand it works in the most simplest way. You're going to bung in refraction, diffraction, and all sorts of other words that other people aren't necessarily going to understand. And like I say, it's a tactic.
The funny thing is, go on.
I was just going to say, it's like Sun Tzu's Art of War. Appear strong where you are weak.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was it, Adam. AJ.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you actually listen to people when they're talking like that, it doesn't take long when you suddenly realise they don't know what they're talking about.
I think you've been listening to me too much.
Throwing big terms into the conversation, and it's one of those things. It dawns on you if you listen. You suddenly think you ain't got a clue what you're talking about. You picked all these things up, and Flat Earth was funny because you had all these people coming to it, trying to defend a model that they didn't understand, and you were saying to people, look, go away and learn your own model. If you want to think you live on a little ball flying through space, go and learn about your little ball flying through space.
Because half of the argument is teaching them their model.
And then blow it up the wall. So.
Yeah, exactly. And explaining how their model doesn't work in reality.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about stellar aberration.
Mm-hmm.
How it's never been explained. It's just marked as a 0, and then kept in a ledger on the side the actual data, because some groups of stars, for some reason, move backwards every once in a while. It's not every year. They take turns doing it.
Well, it's funny to say, because we were talking earlier about the moon going retrograde. Okay, and again, it's one of those things that I've had this conversation with a few people, and they say yes, it's apparent retrograde. Well, look, the moon's either going one way or the other. All right, and there's a perfectly sensible explanation for why it does it. I didn't get onto it, and now is probably not the time to do it. If you want to do it some other time, we can have a look at it. Is if you look at the planets, all right, because I'll tell you who had the model right was Ptolemy. All right, the planets are simply going in little circles, which is why you get this spirograph thing. It works perfectly well with a flat Earth. What you don't like is the fact that it's not. It doesn't sit well with your Big Bang, everything flying apart thing. Right.
Interesting to note that he was apparently a relative of Cleopatra. Is that right?
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe not Cleopatra, but one of the Egyptian, I don't know what the hell they called them, royalty.
And there were multiple Ptolemies. You got to make sure you're talking about Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
I believe somewhere he was born maybe in 80 something.
Yeah.
And lived to be about 159, I think, 159 AD, something like that.
But essentially, his model was the predecessor of Copernicus, wasn't it? It was, I mean, for 1400 years or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
because it worked perfectly.
Yeah, and all Copernicus did was set the whole thing spinning and tossed it into space. Flipped everything round to what is now a heliocentric model.
Yeah, he just switched the sun and the Earth from the center.
But it's not hard to put them back to how they saw them based on observations, and they're not hard to understand. Again, it could go back to Sigma Octantis for a minute, okay? Because it's one that the Globers pull out of the hat from time to time and say, oh, well, what about Sigma Octantis proves that we live on a little ball? Well, one, it doesn't. And two, what you're now saying is there are two stars at exactly the opposite poles of the Earth going in perfectly straight lines all the time. So there's an axis that runs from Polaris through the center of the Earth out to Octantis on the other side. How does that fit in with your Big Bang, everything flying apart thing? What, we just happen to end up right on the axis of the explosion?
Doesn't quite work, does it?
No, it's
Lockstone.
It's like a bomb in a junkyard hoping for a 747 to land fully fueled. It doesn't happen. So it's like I say, when they start trying to complicate the explanation, that's when you realise they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's the threshold. That's the litmus test. I've learnt over the years of debating people on Twitter, is you know whether or not to pursue it, as to whether, I mean, debating astrophysicists and so-called pilots and so-called this, that, and the other, and yeah, when the big words come out, you know that they're clutching at straw men.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, we don't need to give them the whole lot in one go. Sometimes it only takes one point to make your point, or one issue to make your point.
Yeah, and I think the two obvious ones are spin and curve, and we've seen nothing substantial to date in 3.5 years of asking personally. There's nothing, absolutely nothing there.
Well, it begs the question, doesn't it? Who was that NASA woman that did? She did a video for, or her video appeared recently, doing the it's blindingly obvious, and I've been telling my astronomy class for years, this is how we know we live on a ball. And she then said, this is a flat Earth is not a reasonable opinion to hold anymore. Well, why is it not a reasonable opinion?
Because of NASA.
Exactly. All right, we're not allowed to think about these things anymore. If it was that obvious that we lived on a little ball flying through space, surely we'd be able to prove it by now. Beyond any sort of doubt, we wouldn't have all these questions. But the fact is, we have got all these questions. We couldn't find the answers to all these questions, and so we've gone out and looked at it for ourselves.
And how easy would it be for NASA to dispel all these questions in the interest of, I don't know, national sanity or something? How easy would it be for the NOAA facility in Antarctica to provide us with a unedited, unfucked with 24-hour camera view of the sun going around you 360 that we have numerous examples of in the north, and literally zero examples in the south that aren't mucked around with. So yeah, it points to all of this. It would be so easy for them and their $600 a second to just shut us up. That's simple. I mean, the president's got to talk about it. Everyone else has got to talk about it. Mainstream media's got to talk about it. But can any of them do anything for any amount of cost that will just shut us up? No, they can't.
Yeah, there's no video from Antarctica that would suffice in my eyes anymore. The fact that the first scientist that went down there didn't record it, I know video wouldn't have been possible, but if you go back in a lot of these gentlemen's notes and stuff, none of them talk about the sun being able to be seen for 24 hours a day. They may say that it's light out the whole day. But even there's no mention of the sun never setting.
I mean, even modern day, they've just launched those, or so they tell us, those ridiculous cube satellites on the way to Mars, and they send back a picture where Earth is 4 pixels, the moon is 1 pixel, and they go, there you go, there's Earth on its way to Mars. And you're just like, why can't you take a picture, every single day and show us in detail? But no, they just give us this pixelated bullshit, and most of the fanboys will lap it up and regurgitate it like good little fanboys.
Do you know what? It's I always find this is one of those ironies of all of this. All right, in 1968, Stanley Kubrick made 2001. Yes, I know it was a movie, okay, but the point is, he had the film techniques back in the 1960s to be able to show some believable film that people were floating and they were on a space station, and it was believable that it was a station and they were flying in 0G and all that sort of stuff, right? And yet now these agencies can't provide one credible video, all right, believable video of a rocket taking off, showing it taking off from the Earth and getting into space all in one go, and showing it get to the moon and looking back at the Earth.
Yeah, it's not much to ask, really, is it?
If Hollywood could do it 50 years ago, why the hell can't we do it for real now, just to kill this? And the fact is, they can't.
I'm sure you saw the stuff from China. They turned that rover thing off like after a few hours and said, "Okay, we can't show any more of this."
Yeah,
this just looks horrible.
Because the nation was laughing at them. I mean, it was.
I always remember a remark Mark Sargent came out with. He said, "Do you know what? It will be such a coup if the Chinese have really gone to the moon. All right, for them to have gone to the moon and say, here, this is us on the moon. Oh, by the way, we kicked the American flag over by accident. Sorry, just as a publicity stunt. Okay, if you think of all the things that they could have done if we lived on a little ball flying through space, just to prove their point, and they don't do any of it."
Well, it makes me wonder about the Russians and why they didn't then fake going to the moon, saying, well, the Americans faked it. Why the hell shouldn't we? But they all just
had already been taken.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you needed was that one picture. We went 247,000 miles or whatever the hell it was. It only took that one picture, and why China even bothered? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was some sort of psychological test on its nation's intelligence. But they clearly laughed at it, and to the point where they had to pull it and say, all right, enough.
Now, has America and Russia ever fought in a war against each other? I know they've trained other people to then fight against each other and kill each other. But has America and Russia ever exchanged fire?
Beyond proxy wars, no, I can't think of it.
It's like they're playing a game almost with other countries. Well, we'll go train these people to kill, and you train those people to kill, and then we'll have them fight each other and see who wins. But we never ever fight each other. It's kind of divide and conquer.
It kind of spun out the Second World War, didn't it? It was you had, because the Second World War was a European war. Okay, and then America got dragged into it because of Pearl Harbor. All right, I know that's an issue in itself. Okay, but America got dragged into it, and then you eventually, when the dust settled, you had East and West, and never the twain shall meet. It seems to be where America got dragged into this. Well, the Russians, we have an enemy somewhere, so we'll use the Russians because they're big and bad, and we can make lots of money out of it.
Well, the Russians, then the climate, then the terrorists, then the meteorites, and then the aliens.
Flat Earth pissed on those fireworks, didn't it?
Yeah, they sure did. They're still going for the whole space thing, though. I mean, there's so many people that are still asleep. I think they're with this whole Space Force. They are really, really stepping up their schedule.
They're still going. They're still going on the anthropomorphic global warming. I mean, even though that's been proved to be an absolute scam from day one. I mean, they're still going for. I'm still getting taxed on my car for the amount of carbon dioxide it puts out. Apart from the fact that that's what plants breathe, but there you go.
I'm waiting for them to say that it's the aliens doing it, so they can then come to our planet and make it more habitable for them to live or something. Because I think that's their final card that they have to play. Because then they could have a big giant war and blow up and kill anybody or anything they want and say, oh, we were fighting aliens and you just got in the way. I'm sorry.
How else to try and extinguish the thought of flat Earth than to introduce space aliens that came from trillions of miles away? I mean, yeah,
it's their last hurrah.
It's their last death throes, basically. You're either going to believe it or you're not, and they frankly don't give a shit, because as long as half of us don't and half of us do, that's great. They've got themselves a war.
Divide and conquer.
The thing is, as far as flat Earth is concerned, they are running for the hills at the moment, which is why we're seeing a lot of this stupid stuff coming out. The apparently high-powered NASA scientists and people like Elon Musk. All right, I mean, putting a bloody car into space. Have you ever heard anything so stupid? And he's saying we're all going to live in Mars. Well, go on then, bugger off.
Yeah, after you.
It's just you're getting pretty desperate if this is if you think this proves any of your we live on a little ball flying through space stuff, because I think a lot of it is directed at that.
It's all based on emotion, though, isn't it? It's all based on people's emotion, on their emotional level. They've grown up with Star Trek. They could be Trekkies. They could not. They could be into Star Wars. They could be not. But they've watched science programs where they tell you, this is they're showing you some sort of phallic cloud symbol from Hubble. And you at that point you've either got to admit that it could be real, or it is real, or it isn't. But it's all based on emotional psyche. You have to buy into it, and NASA are really the masters of this. And in a lot of ways, this can be called magic. They've built this out of nothing. They've created this entire thought process, and it's all just fiction.
Funny you say that. They're doing it with magic, John. Having watched Strange Angel, you sort of get that whole vibe, the way this is all being done, or at least it's been perpetrated, and the way it's being broken down, even.
Yeah.
What I think what is interesting is to go back to see where the Catholic Church figures in a lot of it. When we're talking about aliens, because you've got the Pope now saying he's going to baptize aliens if they land here. Hang on, 500 years ago, the Pope was saying we've been right all along. One of the bylines when Robert Sungenis wrote, I think he wrote a book that came out at about the same time that his film came out. And it was called Galileo Was Wrong. And it's subtitled, and the Catholic Church was right all along. And the things to remember is they play a much longer game than I think we give them credit for. And with telescopes called Lucifer, looking out into whatever they're looking at the ceiling, thinking they're going to find little green men that are going to come down here and tell us we've all been wrong all along, and guess what, the Pope was right after all. It's a scary thought.
Well, to be honest, the Pope can't be wrong, can he? Because he is the Word of God. So
apparently.
Yeah, so in reality, he literally cannot be wrong about anything he says. Interesting.
I'm still waiting for the huge discovery from that telescope as well. Because as Lucifer is called to some people, he is the light bringer.
Yeah.
The bringer of knowledge. So I'm sure that's going to play into part here. Maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually they're going to fake something from that telescope system saying, oh, look, there is this out there, and blah, 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 blah.
The thing is, we're touching on spiritual things, and flat Earth we've had more than our fair share, all right? Because you've got people like Santos Bonacci saying it's all in the stars, all right? And the stars is the answer to everything. Who's the young guy that he's one of Quasi-Luminous's spin-offs?
Martin Kenny?
Right. He calls himself, no, it's not. I'll know the name when I hear it. It's one of those names that stands out.
Oh, I just saw him today or yesterday.
I think his channel's called Flat Earth Paradise or something.
Yeah, it says he's Hermes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And persists in disporting himself half naked in front of the camera to tell us that he's the messenger of the gods and blah, blah, blah. They've told us that this, that, and the other. So we've got our fair share of spiritual stuff that's coming into this. And of course, you've got the Bible saying, look, the world's flat. You've got even the Quran says the world's flat. All right. Now, sooner or later, something's got to give because you've got all these competing powers. And then you've got Robertson Jennings saying the Catholic Church was right all along. Well, they're all teaching conflicting messages. All right. And it's not my place. It's nobody's place to tell anybody else what is right or wrong. But I think people need to start asking themselves some serious questions. All right.
I'm going to ask you a serious question. Did you get
these things? Go on.
Sorry, I'm being flippant. Did you listen back to IRM's interview with Santos Bonacci?
Yes.
I'll say no more then.
What can I say?
Thank you.
Do you know who I felt sorry? Who was it apologised?
I don't think anybody did that.
No, right, okay. It's one of those. Apologetics it's actually not as good a term as people think it is. But after Santos did his whoosh,
that's probably me.
Who's that?
It's probably Josh, if I had to guess.
Josh, you said something after Santos did his whoosh. And somebody said to you, "Look, you don't need to apologise," and he was dead right. He needs to make no excuses for this. Nobody triggered him. All right, he was. If anybody came in with a script, Santos did.
I guess that was James, because James was apologizing because he's the one that sort of set him off. Then I think that was Adam that told James that there was no need to apologize because he did commit the script. Santos
absolutely went for it. And he I don't know, he seemed to come into that conversation with an agenda, and no matter what, he was going to get onto his agenda.
And then he was trying to get the video pulled, offering readings and stuff like that.
Oh, not only that, he put out to his God knows how many thousands of Facebook people, unsubscribe. These guys are absolute shills, bastards, absolute this, that, and the other. I mean, he took the fight to us, didn't he? And
I should have seen some of the absolute hateful messages that he would send. Just hate.
And a lot of them aren't public, are they? And we're relatively coy here, and we don't openly shit on fellow flat earthers, but
and factually incorrect as well, because I've never eaten a pig's bum. I'll admit I'm a bit of a cum waster, but I've never eaten a pig.
Just wait to America. Yeah.
There we go. The old ones are the favourites. Yeah, it was good. It was good to actually leave that video up. Because I think
he didn't want us to, obviously.
Numerous threats to remove it, wasn't there? That we were going to be hooked over and all sorts of stuff, wasn't it? It's going to affect our massive viewing figures at one point.
I must say, and I'm only speaking for myself here, she's quite a limited sort of background, but I don't think he's said much since.
Oh, yes.
Oh, has he? I guess he's off my radar.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's the thing is, it goes back really to the spiritual questions that are floating around, and sooner or later, people need to deal with these things. And if they want to think so, if people want to believe Santos Bonacci's astrotheology, fine, but just make that decision, because the danger if people don't make those decisions is that they will get swept up with the rest. All right, the Vatican wants a world religion. All right, and they're doing everything they can to bring all the world religions together to say, well, we've all got kind of points in common. But the funny thing is, they all seem to want the Pope to be in charge. Well, hang on. 500 years ago, the Pope was burning at people at the stake if they disagreed with him. And now all of a sudden, all these religions are as good as each other. No, they're not. They clearly conflict. They're clearly not teaching the same thing. And that's what people need to go and look at. And make that decision for themselves. Otherwise, we'll all end up listening to Hermes.
Yeah, they don't want to make decisions, though. They just want to be told how it is from the most popular person out there. Well, not everybody. I don't say everybody, but most of the people that aren't willing to look into flat Earth, I should say. They just want to be told by their local media channel that, yeah, this is all nonsense and go back to your normal life. And
talking about normal life, it's 2:45 here. So guys, I'm gonna head off. It's been an absolute pleasure, Adam. I'm about to clap, so that
it's 2:45 here, so I'm kind of with you on that one.
it's flown by this evening.
I'm going to mirror what you said, Adam, as well, and I'll get a relatively early night.
Come on,
AJ, it's been an absolute blast, and if you're going to come back on, yeah, you are basically. Say no more.
Yeah, we can do it again. It's been good fun.
It has, yeah. Take it easy, and
right.
I'll sign out from here. I'm sure Josh has got some closing words for yourself, but it's been brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Right,
for the second time this week. Cheers.
Speak to you soon, mate. Good
yeah,
night.
and you.
Night, John. Sleep well.
Night,
Love
John.
you guys.
Hi, John.
I'm sure Walt will say the same, but he's busy eating.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I need to wind down anyway because it's 2:45 in the morning, and I'm on an early start tomorrow. So,
well, thank you so much for spending so much time with us. We really do appreciate it. It has been absolutely mesmerizing. I've been enthralled this whole time. I've been quiet, but that's sort of par for the course. I just sit back and listen and try to take as much of it in as I can.
it's been great to join you. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, if you want to do it again, we can do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you let us know what Friday you have free, and we will make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you so much, AJ.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thanks, AJ.
Good night.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, amazing.
That is Adam from the Ajaycee1844 channel on YouTube joining us this evening. What a conversation. Man, I dig it.
I could have listened to 2 hours more easy.
I know. And there's probably so many more hours. We could just pick a direction and go and just keep going.
Yeah, every conversation he and I have, they're never short, ever. We may, we'll get together, talk about something, and it'll last maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then we just start rolling. And it just goes from there. And we talk about everything, kind of like we did tonight. Yeah, great guy. Full of information and ideas, and just always a pleasure to get in touch with.
Before I head, guys, Josh, can I just quickly screenshot? I just want to give a quick shout out to Flat Earth British, Martin Leakey, and screen share here. I'm lucky enough to be not too far away from a star fort. So a shout out to Martin. I'm going to be taking plenty of pictures out. It's called Forte Spagnola, and that's in L'Aquila in Abruzzo in Italy. So I'm going to be heading there on Monday. I've seen a bit of mud flood chat and history chat in there, so I'm going to have a good look at this place. It seems quite interesting with regards to history. We've got the star forts, but we've got lots of other really quite interesting imagery on here. So I shall be eagerly taking lots of pictures. And Martin, mate, I'm going to be in touch and be sending you everything I've got, fella. So looking forward to that on Monday, but just wanted to get that out there. Looks quite an interesting little place.
Let's see. I think there was one other thing, Mr. Adam, before you headed off, I wanted to address. We touched on it this morning.
We did, didn't we?
I wanted to make sure that we got it this evening.
Well, let's my boys. We talk about. There's been a bit of flat Earth kids, and whilst they're aware of it, they're not interested in it particularly. But my sons came running into me the other day. And it's quite interesting because where this little flat Earth shout out came from, it's from a brand new series by Netflix. And I know Walt was struggling with the title this morning. I think it's called Cupcake and Dino. And it's nice to see that the flat Earth is even permeating into kids' cartoons, whether it's just for giggles or not. It was interesting to see it popping up. So I don't know if you got it, Josh.
I know I've got it somewhere, or at least I did at one point. Let me find it.
But yeah, thanks, Leo. Thanks, Archie. Smart job, guys.
Yeah, there are a couple star forts here in the United States, and I've been to one of them. It's actually the oldest city in the United States. It was made under the Spanish rule in Florida, called St. Augustine. And I've been there a couple times to that fort. It's a really neat little town. None of the roads are wide enough for a car to go down. And it's a real small little, it's neat. It's a really neat place. But yeah, I'd been to that fort a couple times. I had no idea it was a star fort until today when Adam was showing me pictures of the one.
There was a video, and I think there's a heck of a lot of star forts and that. What was it? The history you ascribed to it, I think, should be of some question as well. I think it will be interesting to see your thoughts when you go back, Zach. I think to look at it with fresh eyes again.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be going to that star fort. That one's east of me, and I'm going to be heading south and west. But there's got to be more. I know there's got to be more along the Gulf Coast and down into Texas, I'm sure. I'm almost positive, but I'm not going to be heading east.
Well,
maybe.
Wasn't it another little rumor that the Pentagon was built on one? Was it?
Yeah, I heard that too from that video. I don't know how close I could get to the Pentagon, actually.
Don't try, dude. Don't even try.
007 type Mission Impossible.
Well, the one thing you will know is you won't get picked up on the CCTV cameras.
Yeah, they'll all be shut off, all 27 of them probably.
Yeah.
So crazy. The stuff people believe. The stuff they don't believe, is just goes to show how well they can program not just a person, but a very large mass of people to believe something the exact opposite of reality. You got to give them credit for it.
So here's this little clip that was found by Archie and Leo. I just wanted to play real quick because it made me laugh. Hello, play. No? Cool. Never mind. I guess it's not going to do anything.
Classic IRM. We started out with
something. Oh, well. Here's what I can do. Instead of just trying to screen share it. Oh. I wonder if we're going to crash soon. Things have gone all goofy. Huh. All right. Let's see what I can... Yeah, that's not gonna. Well, crap. All right. Well, we'll just sit this one out for a minute and see what happens, and hopefully things will catch up.
Where did I post it, Josh? Was it in pre-show Wednesday?
It is there, I think. I know it's in the Twitter room. That's where I was pulling it from because it plays better from there, but I'm glad I didn't play it in Skype.
See if I can find it. I will be in all sorts of trouble if I don't get this played.
Ladder Paper Buzz, you're going to deliver newspapers to everybody in Big City. I didn't think newspapers even existed anymore. Everyone knows all reputable information comes from random people on the internet. Tell me things, internet. The earth is flat. It's like school in your hand.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks, Archie. Thanks, Leo. That's good stuff. We appreciate the help. Right. I'm getting it all sorted out eventually.
It's kicking in now.
Well, here's what's weird. It took last week to bumble around for me to sort of remember what I'm doing with OBS. Even remotely. Even just a little bit.
Needs to come back, Josh. I'm not back for a while.
Well, shit. Well, before I wanted to head out, we were talking earlier, and we do sort of touch on this quite a bit. But I guess this is part of the show where I overshare. So growing up, my parents divorced when I was 6. And my dad had me every other weekend. And that's about the extent of when I saw him. So throughout the weeks in between, he would send my sister, my older sister, and I letters. And he was living sort of where he lives now, but it was where he grew up also. It was just sits on top of a bluff about 200 feet in the air overlooking a river valley. So the letters he would send us were all titled Letters from Upstream, right? Because he's coming from the river and sending them to his kids that are still with his ex-wife. So when he wrote a book, he sort of compiled some of these letters. So we were talking today with AJ, and it just sort of popped into my brain that he had written one of these letters from upstream that was pretty apropos for the conversation. So I just thought I'd take a minute to read it. It's not too long. But I just love sort of looking at my life and sort of the surprise twist ending this letter has. It really made me laugh looking back. So this is called Seeing the Pale Blue Dot from the Upstream Letters. To my children, I'm sending you this picture in an article that I found in the Sunday paper. It is having a rather profound effect on me, and I want to tell you why. First, the article. It's titled A Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan. It features a small photograph, the first such picture that I have ever seen. It's a picture of the Earth, our planet, taken by the Voyager 1 spacecraft from a distance of 3.7 billion miles. Please look at that photograph. Read the article. I believe photographs such as this have the capacity to change the way we think about our world and even our everyday existence. And yes, even our own concept of justice, religion, and the duty of mankind. Wow. Pretty big stuff for some 2-inch by 2-inch photo that comes from a pulp magazine in the Sunday paper. Here's what Carl Sagan says. Look at the Earth in this picture, a pale blue dot. That's here, a home. That's us. And on that dot, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. Every act of human heroism or betrayal, the sum of human joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, moral teacher and corrupt politician, every saint and sinner in the history of the species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended on a sunbeam. Never before have people been able to attain so much perspective on their planet and their species. To do so is scary in many ways, especially when you consider all of the mundane things that occupy our days and the small thoughts that fill our minds. Perhaps that is why more has not been made of this picture. People shrink from so much perspective. It challenges many of the certainties in our lives, and mankind so loves certainty. And in all of this happening so fast, in the nearly unimaginable span of time that has elapsed since our small planet began, we have had almost no opportunity to gain perspective on the nature of mankind and the planet we live on, about how we relate to the whole of things. Now, in a short blink of the eye, it is forced upon us. How will we react? Can we handle it? It has been in the past few hundred years, nothing in Earth time, that we have been both presented with ideas such as this. The Earth is not flat, and the Earth is not the center of our solar system. Just a few hundred years ago, Copernicus was thrown out of the church for having the belief that the sun was the center of our small solar system. That seems so silly now. Yet with our perspective expanding so quickly, it will only be a few short years before many ideas we now hold immutable truths will necessarily be wrenched from us. And they will seem just as silly. Most people will find this kind of thinking disturbing and will turn away from it. They find it so comfortable to have things set down in little rows labeled good and bad, right and wrong, and true and untrue. If they allow themselves any kind of change in their perspective, those little rows of truth quickly become miserably confused. So they don't do it. Gosh, this can go on, so I guess I need to find my point. It's this. Instead of being threatened by this new perspective that is being thrust on your generation, please allow yourself to be excited by it. Your generation will be totally unique in history. Never before have people been asked to accept ideas that so radically change their thinking. To say that it will be difficult is a monumental understatement. But I believe it can be unbelievably stimulating. Your generation will embark on an age of exploration so enormous that everything that has gone before it may seem insignificant. Then, as now, you will find folks dividing themselves into roughly two types. Those who will steadfastly avoid allowing their minds the freedom that is called for, who will tenaciously cling to their minor perspectives, my town, my school, my church, my holy truth. Others will not be so threatened. They will allow themselves to see, however dimly. They will not be so overwhelmed. They will be more ready to grasp new implications. They will be the people by whom your generation will be remembered. Be one of the second group. My, it will be exciting. With love from upstream, Dad.
Wow, that was cool.
Cool.
Thanks, Josh. That will be heard by my voice tomorrow, mate. That's great words.
That just comes from the book A High Sunny Place, written by Tom Corey. You can find it on the internet.
On that bombshell, I'm off to bed. Thanks, mate.
Nope, thank you.
Guys. Thank you all for.
Hold on, Adam. Adam,
Hey.
before you go.
Go on.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I knew you would.
This dude.
Just hope that's right, yeah. Guys, love you all. God bless. Good night.
Love you,
Love
cousin.
you. Sleep well. Have fun. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Have a good
Stay
weekend.
cool. Try to get a good night's sleep.
What's it? Night, cuz. Yeah.
And then there were, well, I guess John's technically still here.
Technically.
Fuck, technically.
Boom, he's back.
Literally.
That was
Effective.
Tom Corey. Did you
Just
say?
a second. I've had to come back. Josh.
Oh,
Josh. You've got some window running in the background of YouTube, I think. Just press play.
Cool. Trying to get a good night's sleep. Start looking into the ancient past.
Oh, what a pain in my ass.
Well, good night again.
Night, Adam.
Good night, Adam. Tom Corey. Any relation to Josh Corey?
That would be my father. Correct.
Really? Okay. On that note, I'll see you later.
All right.
all right. Take care, cousin.
Savage.
I've got it. Here's some.
You know I've got to hang out until you actually sign off so I can stop the recording, but I'm not really here, honestly. I'm AI.
Make sure you give Bueller big hugs and kisses from me. Tell him it's almost over.
Will do, Zach. Take it easy, brother.
Yeah, love you, man. Take care.
Yeah,
Talk to you soon.
cousin.
Cousin. Later, man.
Cuz.
Is there something playing behind us?
There is. I've not found it yet.
Adam just pulling your chain.
I could hear something he was talking about, but I'll be damned if I'm finding it on my end. So I can just close all that stuff up.
Don't
Sorry,
know.
that's not it. Yeah, no, that's not it. Well, yeah, those lines aren't even up. I don't know.
Well.
I got nary a thing. Well, this time we can actually plug next week accurately. Since I think last week I misplugged it for this week. So last week I said, hey, next week we're going to have Crow 777 on. No, it's actually next week now. So 2 weeks from last week, 1 week from this week, we will have Crow 777 right back here with us. Hopefully he'll hang out for
I think you just did a time warp saying all that.
I think I did. I think I need my nap now.
Dance through the time warp again.
Dance again.
Walter, did you ever dress up?
No, sir. That was something I missed the boat on completely. It happened when I was, I don't know, just not the right age for it, or I don't know. Because I was in my teenage years. We were at the mall. It was playing every Friday or every weekend at the midnight movies. But we always would go see either Heavy Metal, the cartoon, or we would go see Phantasm, or we would go see, what was the other one? Always There, Always There, Always There. Altered States. Those were always our go-to weekend midnight movie. The one or two times we attempted to go see that Rocky Horror thing, we would always get in there and people would just be aggravating us left and right. We didn't even, we just were not not on the right page for it. And then afterward, checking it out on video years later, it was like, yeah, it's a movie. So I just missed the boat.
Yeah, I never did the whole dressing up thing either. We had the same. I'm younger than you, but they still were doing it at the theaters every Friday or Saturday night at midnight
Mm-hmm.
at a couple different theaters in the Chicagoland area, or the outskirts here in Northwest Indiana when I was living up there. But yeah, I never even went to one.
Nor I. Not even sure I've ever sat through the whole thing, watched all of it at any
I
point.
have watched the whole thing one time, and then I caught parts of it here and there.
I'm
And
reasonably.
I'm a big Tim Curry fan. I loved him as Darkness in Legend. I loved him as Pennywise. I just did not enjoy that movie as much as most people do, or the fans do. Anyway.
Yeah, I can sing the song and do the dance. It's one of those easy ones.
Well, you're ahead of me. I know the
Well, what
song
is it?
exists.
It's just a hop to the left, and
There
you
you
step to the right. You put your hands on your hips, tuck your knees in tight, and then you like do the hula hoop with your body. I don't know the words to the rest of the song. And then dance through the time. Yeah.
Nope. Next
It
time.
wasn't one of my favorite movies.
You need to have your mom hold the camera so that we can watch you do it. I really want to see that.
That movie is actually how Meatloaf got his start, believe it or not. He was a roadie working on for the sound crew, and the gentleman who was supposed to play the part of whoever's boyfriend, blah blah blah, the biker, didn't show up, and they asked, "Hey, can anybody sing?" And he spoke out and said, "Yeah, I can." Tried out, and he got the part, and that's how he got his start in showbiz, believe it or not.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? What a movie. One of the cult classics, to get your start in. Loyal fan base for the rest of your career. I know Hanker Panker. Almost, buddy.
Well, that was kind of how I was about the heavy metal cartoon movie in the 80s. Like I said, almost every weekend we would go see it at the Midnight Movies. Because I was a huge fan of the heavy metal magazine from Europe and had most of the issues that the stories in that movie are based on. So just huge fan, loved it, watched it over and over. Yes, there were lots of failings in that movie, but it was still a great attempt at the time to make heavy metal magazine into a movie.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I love the South Park remake.
Right.
The Boobopolis. Yeah, South Park hasn't done it, then it wasn't worth talking about. They've just redone about everything now. Well, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, we did that a bit. We all need to just hang out somewhere, it sounds like. Talk crap. Talk movies.
We do.
Songs.
Open the phone lines. Just hang out. We really need to get another show up here going during the week. We almost got close, seems like it, a few weeks ago of actually starting something.
I think it's coming. I feel it.
Yeah, we were definitely touching on it, having the feeling of doing it, and kind of just washed away for a little bit. That happens, though. It'll come back around. Everything does. It's all circular.
Or toroidal at the very least.
Yeah, next time it comes around, we just got to strike when the iron's hot.
That's it. So I saw a meme on Facebook. It made me laugh. It says, convincing your girlfriend she's crazy or paranoid is called gaslighting, and it's a dick move. But convincing her that she's a robot with artificially implanted human emotions is called blade running. That's a Philip K. Dick move.
I love it. I love it.
Well, gents, you got anything else?
No, I'm all.
I'm pretty spent.
They're talking about string theory and all.
Yeah, I was just looking at chat, trying to play catch up, and it's too much for me to even try to dive into at this point. AJ, thank you so much out there again. It was amazing, and please come back soon. Everyone else, it was a blast this morning as well. Thank you there, Zach, and thank you here, my brother. My cousin, sorry.
We're going to get that into our heads here eventually. John will burn it in.
Brothers from other mothers.
But yeah, definitely. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys. You know that. You don't even have to ask. Just tell me, hey, we want you to come on the show. And I'll be like, okay, all right. Well, no problem.
Good deal. It's good that we got to back up.
Yeah. I haven't said that. Yeah. I'm going to say good night to everybody. Thank you all for joining us. It's always a pleasure. I always have a great time, at least. I don't know about all y'all, but I love hanging out with these guys. My cousins.
That's right.
It's going to be a new show, Flat Earth Cousins.
There you go. So yeah, gentlemen, I love you. As always, had a lot of fun. I'm sure I'll be talking to you before Tuesday for sure.
I'm sure.
It never goes that far without us getting a hold of each other and whatnot. So.
Nope, I'm sure, Zach, you'll find your way back here eventually. I'm sure it's not going to be Wednesday. I'm sure we'll get together at some point during the weekend.
Oh, yeah. So, as always, thanks, everybody. And I'll see y'all next time.
Sweet. Thanks,
all right,
Zach.
Zach. Take care, man.
Everybody check out
Hank and Mom.
Will do. Love you guys.
Later. Check out Zach's channel. Good Times for All. GUDTIMS. The number 4 ALL. Look for some really interesting videos I think he's going to be putting up there during his travels. I mean, he's still just sort of bumming around the same spot right now, waiting to get his legs underneath him, and he's still putting out some really cool videos. So definitely go check him out over there. You never know what the hell you're going to find. He's liable to just bust out with some experiment you don't even expect it. Zach's good like that.
He is indeed. Well, Josh, thank you, sir, for this lovely long day.
Thank you, Walt. Here we are back at it.
I know. Starts and ends with you and I.
Does seem that way.
All right, everybody else, have a great, great weekend. Enjoy your EV Community Day. Gotta catch them all.
Gotta catch them all.